All right, where did we get to last week?
All right, last week, okay, well, we were talking about these questions at the end of class last week. We were talking about how do we love each other. Hold on, I gotta fix my screen. There we go. How do we love each other well within the church in ways that others will notice? Remember the video where the man said there are two types of Christians or non-Christians. Ones who have met Christians ones who have not met Christians and ones who have met Christians, right? So there's two types of non-Christians. Man, I messed that up big time.
There's two reasons people are not Christians.
There's two reasons people aren't Christians. They've either not met a Christian or they've met a Christian.
Right.
There we go. Sorry. And so we don't want to be a Christian that, by the way that we treat people, other people are like, I don't want anything to do with that. Right? So we talked about that. We talked about how we love each other within the church so that others notice how we're treating each other. We talked about instances where that works and where it doesn't. And then we jumped into a little bit of a discussion on the trade-off between being doctrinally serious and relationally warm and receiving. So you can definitely, there can be a spectrum there where you're one or the other. We talked about people trying to love one another in completely opposite ways by having a completely opposite message, and both of them are saying we're loving these people, we want to save them, or we're loving these people, we want them to be happy, or whatever. So we're going to continue on that line of loving within the church, and I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of start.
Yeah, so
off here.
did we talk about the John verses of the New Commandment? Did y'all read through that?
Yes.
Let's just have I want to have a refresher on that. I don't want to necessarily go over too much retread, but can somebody read John, did we say 31?
I got 13:31 through 35.
Yeah,
on the screen
13:31 through 34. Oh, it's up there right now. Okay, who can read that for us out loud?
I can. John 13:31 through 35. So 31, when he had gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. 32, if God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and glorify him at once. 33, little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will seek me, and just as I said to the Jews, so now I also say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. 34. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. 35. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another.
So is that the 11th commandment? Did y'all talk about that?
We did a little bit, yeah. I was trying to save it for this week, but David brought it up. And so my take on this is that it's not necessarily the 11th commandment, but it's almost replacing the commandment to love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Right.
So you can think of it that way.
What are the characteristics of that love between each other? What are the things that we can do by which the world would know that we are followers of Jesus?
Try to pray for each other.
Pray for each other.
Big one filled with grace, mercy.
Tell me a little bit more about that, being filled with grace and mercy.
Well, there is a characteristic of love where you're forgiving. I think the only way you get to that forgiving part is through grace and mercy, and is giving someone the benefit of the doubt, or second chance, or however you want to say it. I think that it has to do with it's different from maybe other types of love. It's just I think it'd be a different type of love.
Yeah. Well, these are all great. I don't question anything you're saying. I loved everything you've added to it. Yes, ma'am.
I think exhibiting a servant heart, and it goes kind of along with what Lance said, not being haughty, not being feeling like we're better than others, that we should be humble and serve and not show our jealous. It's a way to show love.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. I just asked him, I said, what was the question? Because I feel like I'm zoning out. What I'm thinking of is loving the unlovable, like loving people that are hard to love. It's so easy to love people that are likable, but I'm thinking about how Jesus loves me, unlovable, imperfect, and so that to me feels like a big, it's like how are we loving people who we deem to be unlovable, that we don't like, that we hate, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that.
Loving your enemies, right? But not
Yeah.
just your enemies, maybe even those that are begrudging towards the love you're giving them.
Yes, difficult. Just it's not easy, and that can be with people that we're in families with, or strangers, or friendships, or just people we see on Sundays. But so that's
And
something that comes in.
I would go further and say everybody can be like that, right? I mean, your spouse can be like that at times and then not. So it's not just like there's a person that is that way all the time. It's
Sure,
like everybody.
unlovable 100% of the
It's-
time, but just
yeah.
in people's bad moments, so to speak,
Yeah.
when people are challenging. Yeah.
It's great.
I remember one of the first sermons that I remember hearing from Jerry was about how Jesus is interruptible and being willing to kind of set aside your plans and your day and being available to each other.
Definitely. It's really good.
Anybody else? I'll ask a question on top of that. Are any of the things that have been mentioned here housed within an individual alone? In other words, are any of these things that you can do by yourself? Or are these relational? I think all of the examples that we pointed out and how we show love, how we show that we are followers of Christ, we're not necessarily that we don certain garments or that we do certain actions by ourselves. They were all how we relate to our fellow man and how we represent the love of Christ to them. And I think the point there to be made is that our relationship with God is our relationship with God's people. And our relationship with God's people is our relationship with God. And I won't go too far because I feel like I'd be way over my skis in saying this, but I think there is some element of that being said to a culture that was governed by a temple in the center of Jerusalem, where there was a lot of performative acts to your closest to God. That God was in this area behind this curtain, and you did certain things, and you had certain practices that you did solely to show that you were in fact getting close to God, and then you came up to the priest, and the priest allowed you, through your sacrifice or whatever it was, to have that connection. And here, Jesus is telling us, be to each other as I have been to you. And that is the way that you are in fact relating to and having closeness with the Lord.
That's a good question. I mean, it makes me think of a question. So a lot of that was because they kind of had two ways of thinking of love, right? The two greatest commands. You saw that love God and love others. So I feel like you're talking about loving others, but there is a way to love God, right? And does that look different than how we love others?
What is your thought?
Can you repeat that again, please?
So is the way that we love God different than how we love other people?
Yes.
Okay. What does that look like? How does that look different? Do we do it alone? Do we do it in community?
I think if you're loving God, you're trying to please Him and do things that are acceptable to Him. You might not agree with someone else that you're trying to show love to, as far as the way that they act or what they do.
Good. Yeah.
I think
Go ahead. He has hand raised. Sorry.
So there are things called the offices of love. Like, the office of love between me and Jenny is different than the love between me and my kids. The office is different between me and God versus my love for anybody else. And because this is like a pop-up question, I don't know how to categorize, how do we love God differently?
Are your offices connected, or
Yeah,
can
they're all
you just
connected.
separate
I think
them?
they're all connected. Well, you know, if I
It's
don't love
like
myself,
a cubicle.
well, you know, if I don't love myself, it's impossible to love anybody else. I mean, everybody says, oh, you can't love yourself. Well, I don't know, you know, love your neighbor as yourself. If I don't love myself, I can't love everybody else. But I don't know, I kind of struggle. How do you define that love for God? You know it's there. How do you put your fingers on it? I mean, it's got to be more than just acts. But then again, you are what you do sometimes, right? So enlighten us.
This is a great stream of thought. I like it.
That was weird. Come on, I'm tired.
Margaret, were you gonna say something?
I was just thinking that the relationship to God is very different, because I think God desires us to be with Him each day as much as we can, and I can't give that to everybody.
That's fair.
So, but that's the foundation for me to go out and give love to others. If I do not have that fundamental relationship with God and understand what He wants, it would be hard to go out and love others as much as I can. And I do think the love for God has got to be so much deeper. It should become so much deeper, far-reaching than maybe what you extend to others, just because He is the supreme being.
I think my thought combining those things is that we can't compartmentalize it. We can't shut our office off between those two. There's like the urban legend, I guess, maybe about the missionary who went out and just did everything for God, and his wife left him and his kids left him. He never saw him, he never spent time with them. He didn't treat his family right, and it was because he loved the mission work so much, right? And you can't just love God and not love the other people in your life.
Yeah. I was gonna, yeah.
John chapter 4 is pretty clear on that.
John chapter 4.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to read?
First John chapter 4.
Okay.
We love because He first loved us. If anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, he's a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. And He has given us this command: whoever loves God must love his brother. The question sort of implied that love of God and love of our fellow men are separate and distinct. I think this passage says those two things are inextricably linked.
Yep. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, and I was going to call to 1 Corinthians 13, 1. This is before the love is patient, 1 through 3. It says, if I speak in the tongues of, ESV version, so if I speak in the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries of all knowledge, and I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but I have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. And I think that is maybe a same side or a different side of the same coin as to what you just called out from 1 John. And I think the point there that I was trying to get to is that we could be a church, a people, we could be individuals who are devout in our love for the Lord, but if we aren't exhibiting love for other people, then there is a hollowness to our faith. There is an incompleteness to our faith. Not that your faith is wrong, or that it is not.
Do you know, there are 2 reasons today.
No, it's fine. That's probably good. That's probably right.
I did not do that.
That is okay.
Is this going in the wrong direction? It is. I'm so sorry. I was just trying to get onto like this blank screen. No. Oh my goodness. No distraction.
All right.
I did the opposite of what I was trying to do.
That's okay. That's okay. I think we got through that. So I want to go to Romans 12, 9 through 8. Can somebody read? 18, yeah, 9 through 8 would be in reverse. If you can read that, man, you got it. Romans 12, verses 9 through 18. Somebody want to read that?
I've got it. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of lower position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord."
Okay. Can somebody read Colossians 3, 12 through 14?
As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other, just as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony.
Okay. So we take these as some of the concrete examples, right? Actionable, concrete examples of what it means to be a Christian. So what are some of the things that we heard? Can we call out some of the examples?
Forgive.
Forgive. What else?
Practice hospitality.
Hospitality.
Humility.
Humility.
Honor each other.
H words. This really strong smell too.
Yeah, this one is very strong. Looks like it's from the 80s. I'm not sure why it works.
It's got lead paint in that. What else?
Kindness.
I think there's some experiential words of all types in here. He talks about rejoicing with those who rejoice, and immediately followed by what? Mourning with those who mourn. This doesn't say, if you're a Christian, you will not experience those things, right? You will not experience negativity. You will not experience loss. Instead, what it says is, do not allow yourself or others to be alone in these times. Be with people who are in those situations. Right?
Which one of those is harder?
It's hard for me to mourn with somebody who is mourning. I I want to fix it and be happy and not experience negativity.
I think it's harder for me to let other people mourn with me. And just, I guess, be vulnerable, tell people that I need that.
I wonder, I think my struggle is, I keep looking for a feeling. You know, Tom Jones, you young guys don't know Tom Jones.
Well, I know.
Feeling on that. And I think the American understanding of love sometimes seems so shallow, really for the fuzzy feeling, but I think we can still love people and be in a bad mood on a particular day. Because maybe, in one essence, like I said, maybe you are what you do. That's not a blanket statement, but maybe it's just act like it.
Not necessarily fake it till you make it, but something along the lines of that.
No, but that's what I think some counselors tell people who are struggling with loving another person. Act like you love the person, and one day you wake up and find out you do. So maybe it doesn't have to be warm and fuzzy all the time. It's my wife, and we're getting old, right? We're getting tired. And she'll have something to do for somebody, and she'll walk out the door like this. You know, she's going, oh, can't believe I'm going to do this. But she doesn't. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
so I tell myself, stop looking for the fuzzy feeling and just get about the work. And that's what I see.
Be about the work.
I said,
No, that's great. That's good. That's good. I think that's reality. Because
I know Jeannie was like, being over,
She puts on a good show, doesn't she?
making it well.
You don't have to come this weekend if you don't have to.
the who else? That's great. I think that's great. I think there is a lot of times that, if to what you're saying, if you put yourself in the situation, regardless of the feeling, like there can be a connection made. And if you rely on your feelings alone, you will hold yourself back from a lot of things that would maybe not enrich you, but enrich the other person.
maybe some of this becomes habit,
Yeah.
becomes muscle memory, and when it's needed, it happens, and you don't think twice about it.
I would, the comment that's coming to my mind, and I don't want to take what you're saying further than you wanted to go, or pervert it in any way, but if we're looking for a feeling to motivate us, I think that is a selfish feeling, right? It's got to be for me to be in it, as opposed to, I'm going to do this because I know it's what's called of me, or I'll do it regardless of what is in it for me.
It takes time and practice.
It
And
does.
it's easier, the older we get, the easier it is to do.
Right.
When you're younger, you tend to be more self-oriented.
Personally, I can say yes, that's true. Very true. I hope that I'm breaking away from that at least a little. What else? Anybody else point out anything?
I have a lot of empathy for people.
Oh, yeah, empathy.
Yeah.
Is that one in there?
I don't know that that word is specifically used, but I think it's a great word. And I think it's something that's lost in times. I don't know if I want to go to this immediately, but it did talk about conflict resolution, like forgiveness as part of conflict resolution. I do want to get to Matthew 18 because I think it sets up. Is it up there
Yeah,
already?
we have a question. We have another
Yeah.
question for Roman, if you want.
Yeah, okay. So we talked about actions. What about normal everyday habits? What are normal everyday habits that strengthen or weaken our communal bond as a church? Praying for one another. And I hope that would strengthen us, right? That's where that one would go. What else? What are some of these habits, regardless of how we feel about whether we should do them, that strengthen our relationship, or some of the habits that we may have that weaken our relationship?
Encourage and build up one another. That's a habit everybody can learn that habit.
Right.
Say gossip is a weakening habit.
Yeah. Who can speak to why gossip might tear down or destroy?
It's usually not positive. At least I always think of it
I think also because when, in my experience, I know that when I'm talking poorly, specifically about some negative gossip, something happens in me, it's almost pick apart that person more to justify my own wrongdoing, and that's something that happens, I think, unconsciously and instantly creates separation. It's impossible to be connected to that person until that's confessed and acknowledged that, hey, I gossiped about you and I won't do that anymore,
Man, that is a great observation.
Thanks.
That you, regardless of your actual interaction with that person, you in your own mind have, created a barrier that you now have to come across. Not because they necessarily know it, but because you do.
I have a little habit that has strengthened my bond with a few people. I've gotten some notes from Jenny, sent one to my son actually recently about an interaction that he had with her grandson, and then Jean Gibson has sent a note to my kids when they worked in the yard or something like that, and just little touch points of communication that can come out of the blue. I feel is positive.
What about grudges? Those are pretty negative. Does it create barriers?
I think one thing that would really weaken the bond, so to speak, is being critical of everything that's done.
Tell me about that. Yeah. I've read, this is several years ago, but I had a daily email from Richard Rohr, and it was, he even recognized in his own writing that he was, he's a Franciscan priest, Catholic, and he was recognizing that he's critical of his own church and his own tradition, right? And he said, I need to be able to have that discernment of not agreeing with what is going on necessarily every single practice that they have without being critical about every single thing that the church does, in letting that thought about whatever that interaction or that practice just pollute the whole relationship, because ultimately there needs to be a recognition that no one is perfect, no application of love or the attempt is going to be perfect, and that we have to give each other grace. So I struggle with the criticism part. I'm just a highly critical person, I guess, and I look at things, and then I guess that is what influences how I view, a whole group. And so I struggle with being too critical and not giving grace as I have received grace. It's a great point. Well, there is in Matthew 18 some ways to deal with some of these. I think some of these things that we dealt with that were pulling us away, that were bad, the gossip, the grudges, and the being critical. I think some of that is addressed by Jesus' own words in Matthew 18. Can somebody read Matthew 18, starting at Matthew 18:15?
If your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault. Just between the two of you, if he listens to you, you have won your brother over. But if he will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the whole church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, treat him as you would a pagan or a tax collector. How far?
No, that's good. That's good. So what are the steps here for conflict resolution? What is the very first step? And again, I want to say this at the beginning. I don't know that this is necessarily a prescription so much as it is a description, right? This is Jesus giving us a framework, and I don't know that he's necessarily etching it in stone and passing it along as if it doesn't happen in this way, then it is not of God. But I do think the essence of what is being communicated touches on all the points that we've discussed earlier about love and things that build up. So, with that preface, what is the very first thing that we're called to do there? Yeah.
Direct, one-on-one, loving confrontation. Word confrontation is because I don't know what else to call it, but
Yeah.
in a loving way, care, drawing, pointing light on the area of misstep or whatever you want to call it.
What does that avoid?
What?
What does that avoid?
That avoids gossip and people feeling alienated and, and unnecessary embarrassment or a feeling of being ganged up on or,
Yeah.
yeah.
A misunderstanding, because a lot of times what we hear is not what they mean. And if you go one-on-one and talk to them, maybe you can clear the air that there might have been a misunderstanding.
Yeah. I think time and misunderstanding equals, pain or larger rift. So by eliminating the possibility for those things to grow and fester and going directly to, we might be able to achieve conflict resolution. And it's interesting language that is used at the end of 15. If he, and this is the ESV version, if he listens to you, you have gained your brother. Right? If you're able to have that conversation, then you have strengthened the bond between the two of you, which, as we've talked about interrelationship, I would say is glorifying to God, as opposed to having his people, separated by their own grudges, their own inability to get over things. We have strengthened the bonds of love, and we have brought God's presence here with us through that relationship.
Well, and you know how important it is to God, because he tells us, don't come and take communion. Don't come and offer your sacrifice if
Yeah.
you have anything against the brother. And, it should make us think twice about how we come before God and what our feelings are.
I think that is a wonderful observation. Because how many times have we heard that on a table message, right? And how many times when you heard that in a table message, you're like, well, got a couple people I need to talk to. I know I have. And I think that speaks directly to the heart of this, right? Go and have that reconciliation. So then if that doesn't happen, then what do we do?
Take 2 or 3 and try again.
And what's the purpose of bringing people in? Is it to create numbers and pile on?
One thing it does, it lets that individual know that others are also concerned about the disagreement that's going on, and they're also wanting to get a resolution, and so it won't continue to separate the 2 individuals.
If there's a complication, I think, that happens here, but I think it's all towards the right purpose. But if you bring 2 or 3 other people, are they necessarily going to have the same view of what has happened between you and this other person as you might have? So I think it also might help.
I guess it'd be best if you didn't know what their opinion was.
Yeah. Because you're bringing outside truth into your interpersonal struggle, right?
They might say that you're in the wrong, or that you're misinterpreting his actions. And they're witnesses to how the 2 of you try to resolve it.
That's great. And then, of course, if we can't do it with just the 2 or 3, then to the whole church, right?
I will have to confess, I've heard this all as long as I've been a Christian. I don't think I've ever done that.
Brought it to the whole church?
It terrifies me. Just the first.
Well, I've gone one-on-one, and I guess maybe everything's kind of been resolved that way well enough. But thinking about bringing 2 or 3 with me to confront somebody, it even threatens me a little bit to think that they'll get the wrong perception if I come with 2 or 3. but I've never done that, so. I just wonder how many of us have. I mean, I know we're supposed to.
Well, we have a meeting and I was gonna have to. I think one thing that underlies this, and your point makes it very, very great. How many of us are really gonna go there before we also bring some submission into the situation? There's a lot of the verses that were in, I think, the Romans verses that Frank was reading to us, that talk about basically submitting your own desires and will to that of another. There's a mutual sacrifice and a mutual submission that happens here. And I think in the process, if you were really bold enough to say, hey, me and all 300 of us, we're coming at this one person because I am in the right? That would have to be something really strong and really offensive to need. I'm sorry, I'm looking right at you, but you brought it up. To need to get to that situation. And I think what's being emphasized here is that in the conversation, that initial conversation between the two individuals, just showing to that person that you were willing to use Ryland's word to be vulnerable to them about it, right, could be helpful in resolving the situation itself.
I'm
talked
a little
so much.
confused about this
You
one
go.
myself,
Yeah.
because Jesus says, if they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. This is pre-Christianity. Who's he talking about?
Well, was the word church?
Our mind says church. What it's like go to the
Ecclesia, tell it to the assembly.
who would that have been at that time?
It is ecclesia.
Probably their house church, I guess. I mean, I assume it's maybe it's,
But that's Jesus is saying it. They don't have house churches yet. They got like rabbis and synagogues, right? I mean, how would they have interpreted Jesus saying this? And what size of crowd are we talking about? Are we talking about like you go to a mega church and like now like 7,000 people know your dirty laundry, or what are we talking about?
Is it like a town council?
Well, to some extent, that this definition I have here, ecclesia being the common term for the meeting of another Greek term, ekletoi, those summoned to discuss this affairs of a free state. So somewhat of a town council, right?
Okay.
The body of citizens summoned together by a herald,
So you're taking them to court.
essentially.
Well, surely it's a grievous thing that's occurring for you to bring it before the assembly. It's got to be maybe tearing people apart. People are taking sides against each other. It's got to be more than just between 1 to 2 people. I would think it's probably affecting more people, and they need to bring it before the assembly.
but every conflict is not sin, right? So this is talking about sin.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again, Gerald.
Not every conflict between people is sin. I mean, so this is talking about something very particular that is what you say, Margaret. It is affecting the body, the church, and how do you deal with that? So I think it's okay to apply conflict resolution to this and try to learn from it, but I don't know that that's exactly what he's trying to deal with.
Yeah.
He's talking about sin.
I think Gerald is saying something very important there, and that is, it is very easy to take this passage and build on this passage. How is it that we resolve conflict, okay? Any conflict between individuals. It's really easy to build on that. When the context of this passage, I think, is somebody who is caught in a grievous sin, and it needs to be pointed out for the good of the church.
Yeah.
For the good of the church. I mean, Paul in a book written much earlier. I mean, Paul basically, Corinthians, he's got some very strong things to say about people who are immoral, who are part of the church. Okay, and we're not talking about civil stuff. We're talking about a man living with his father's wife. I think that's the term. That sounds pretty grievous to me.
Yeah.
It's not some simple issue people had with each other that they didn't agree upon. I'm not dismissing the fact that there's principles here
Yeah.
that are important. Okay, I think there are principles, but we just gotta be careful sometimes in how far we apply those things.
I think that's fair. I would say to the point of sin versus conflict, the term, not a Greek scholar, right? And you've raised at least one, possibly three. Hamartano, sin, to miss the mark, and it's also translated as trespass. And there isn't a valuation given to, and use grievous, so there's not a valuation used in this text about that. And so there is I'm not sitting here today to argue that this is every single conflict that you need to. I think the principle that underlies this, though, is the relational resolution of whether it be sin or the conflict. And the analogy I was going to use as an attorney is that the bringing it to the court, the bringing it to the assembly is the first thing that happens in a lot of these situations, right? We go and we file a complaint, which is in the court of public record, right? And we say, this person hit me with their car, right? They rear-ended me on Highway 96 and tore up my bumper, which happened to my wife this morning. You know, so I was asking her if she was okay. Does her neck hurt? Does she feel all right? Make sure she, you know, but I think, not to say that society is bad or whatnot, but we see the evolution of the opposite side of conflict resolution turn into what we've made modern conflict resolution today. There are attempts now within our own profession to bring in mediation, to bring in pretrial diversions, those kinds of things on the criminal side, and then mediation on the civil side, to bring people back together to resolve their conflicts without having to go to that court setting. So, but I think Jesus, in pulling this out, the point I wanted to make was it's relational. Again, to the point earlier, it's not an individual experience with God. It is a relational experience with God. And if we allow these misunderstandings to fester, if we create in our own hearts that division by gossiping and creating these separations that maybe only we feel, but they're real, and if we let those misunderstandings grow and fester into something, then that can affect not only our individual relationship with that person, but somebody else's relationship with that person to whom we gossip, right? Or who hears about our conflict. As opposed to there being forgiveness and resolution, now we've basically seeded division. And that can also grow in the same way. So.
And that in itself is sin.
Exactly.
This passage is really, really hard. But I think we have to be careful here in the way this thing starts off. It doesn't say, if a brother sins, go and show him his fault. It says, if a brother sins against you. Okay? So that's, boy, that in my mind may limit this passage way, way more than we generally apply it. So we're talking about something that you have done that is wronged me personally. Okay? You're guilty of adultery because you've had trying to have a relation with my wife. It's not because you're just out running around with somebody else's wife. Okay?
That's a fair point.
And my neighbor has allowed his dog to come over and poop in my yard. And so I got to go see Riley. And I said, Riley,
Never. Just bring it up before the church here.
Let's go to the lecture.
And he's my next door neighbor, in case you got something. Next door neighbor. Yeah, we share a boundary in our backyard.
Why don't we just meet in that neighborhood? Half of y'all are
But, I don't know. I'm not sure that this is not more
No, I think that's a great point.
personal issue.
Yeah, because we go around and say, what you're doing is sin, and you need to know about it. That's a lot different than you have missed the mark, you've trespassed on me, right? You've done something to me. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, I've been sitting here thinking, should I say what he just said? To me, there's two different categories of this. And one is just like, okay, if Margaret's done something that upset me or whatever, and I go to her and, take to others later and all that, it's different than if it's something that's affecting the whole church or other individuals in the church spiritually, on a spiritual level, loving level, spiritual, all of that basketful. Those are two different categories in my mind. Is that what you're saying?
So Dave,
to somebody directly, even if you have two or three and everybody is recognizing their own faults, the plank in their own eye as they're having these discussions, that can diffuse the potential bond there.
I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I just thought we can talk more after.
Sure.
Basically, do you think maybe it's hard on purpose so that you'll realize partway through this isn't worth it? I should just forgive them.
Maybe.
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 All right. Have a good
Until next time.
2 weeks. I'm going to be back.